Happy Sunday, everybody. Today we are looking at the T1 by Broadway Limited. All right, before we get too far into this, I want to take a moment and apologize ahead of time. Got a bit of the sniffles. The smoke in Montana has been rough the last week, so allergies have been bothering me. So bear with me while we get through this. First things first, this is the T1 by Broadway Limited, and it is rocking the Paragon 3 decoder still, and DCC and sound right from the factory. I have had mixed results with this locomotive, but I generally have pretty good things to say. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. A little bit of backstory. I have been a fan of the Streamline, Art Deco locomotives, and art for that reason, or for that matter, for quite a while. And they've always been kind of a soft spot for me. I've really enjoyed those types of steam engines in the past, especially when I was a kid. And the S1 is one of the coolest engines I've ever come across, and I've always wanted an S1 for whatever layout I was going to have, HO, N scale, whatever it had to be. But they're kind of an oddity and a little bit rare to find. After I came across the Paragon 3 Heavy Pacific and had such excellent looks from Broadway, I decided it was probably time to pick the T1 up. This is the S1's kind of standardized brother for the Pennsylvania Railroad. I think they're the only ones that ever purchased this, and it definitely has a more industrial look. And now that I've had this on my layout, I've come to kind of like it just as much as the S1, and it really is an outstanding looking engine. So let's just take a moment and zoom in on this thing and see what she looks like. All right, so I got the camera adjusted a little bit. We're going to take a little bit closer look at some of the detail on this. I'm going to zoom in ever so slightly. And we're going to come up just a tickle. All right. This thing must have been fresh out of the mold coming from Broadway. The rivet detail on this thing, front to back, is just superb. Everywhere you look on it, all the rivets are super consistent. Nice even distance between all of them. No, flashing or flags from the molds. I'm not really sure how they put this thing together, but my God, did Broadway do a nice job. Up front here, we have a semi-scale coupler. It is kind of a Microtrains-esque type coupler. It's almost closer to Z-scale if I had to guess. They can be a little bit finicky, especially with Accumate couplers. They don't play real well, but any Microtrains you might have, they seem to play just fine. But something you should probably be aware of. The hose that is on the front coupler, I ended up having to trim, so I should probably do the back at some point, but the front coupler seems to be just a little bit sticky there, and if you're coming into corners just right, sometimes the coupler can get stuck over like that, and you end up getting caught on either raised areas of track or turnouts. So just a little bit of something that I found. I ended up having to cut the hose back. Not the biggest deal, but I did have to do it. Again, sorry for the sniffles. The smoke's terrible today. Hand railing is absolutely excellent on this thing. I mean, here is a pen for scale. This is something you don't generally see on N scale stuff, is really nice, thin, strong hand railing. I think this might even be metal. It's pretty stiff. This doesn't have the decals on it like a normal engine would. This is an Undecorated for my kind of Christmas train that I'm putting together. So you'll have to excuse some of the lack of detail there. However, I have seen another one of these, a friend of mine owns, and super detail on that thing. The fine line work of the Pennsylvania livery on it is just superb, and I can say from experience, if I would have had one of them, I probably would have been happier, to be honest with you, because they do look really nice. The front trucks on this are really nicely made. I have a bit that I want to get to when we talk about how this actually runs on the layout, that I really like this style setup versus like what the Kato FEFs would have. And then let's go ahead and get to the part of this. I'll see if I can get them both in frame. I can, good deal. Kind of the bread and butter of this model is the 4x4 wheel arrangement. And these big old drivers, they look really scaled. They're really smooth running. All the linkages on here are superb. They are really quiet. They don't take a whole lot of maintenance, just a drop of oil every now and then. And I haven't had any issues like some of my other bigger steam engines that I've got from other manufacturers, where they end up in kind of a bind, and then you struggle to get your motor to run properly. Again, continued, all of the body paneling is very crisp, nice straight strong lines, and the paint on this tends to get down even into the crevices and be nice and smooth. The walkways have excellent texture on them, and it might even be real brass, but the whistle on the other side over here, and then some of the blow-off valves they look to be metal. If they're not, they've got the paint absolutely perfect on them. As we continue back, you're going to get to the rear idler wheels. They look nice, and they are properly suspensioned. They're relatively tight in there, and again, I'll get to that in the running video on how they interact with the entirety of the engine. And the firebox looks great. The rivet detail is wonderful here as well. Can't see much inside the cab, and that's okay. They're pretty small. It'd be difficult to see that type of detail, so nothing against them there. The one thing I wish all model makers or people who build these engines would just get the gap between the tender and the engine just a little bit tighter. I realize that there's probably something to do with running on tighter radiuses, but it seems like everything that I get has a relatively large gap. Not the end of the world, just something that I've come across. Unfortunately, the tender isn't much to look at on these Pennsylvanias. They're kind of just a massive coal box. And when I say massive, I mean they're massive. They're kind of the length of another engine, honestly. But when you do get to the back, the air tanks, I think those are air tanks, anyway. All the hand railing, ladder, all of that is really nicely detailed, and I think Broadway did an excellent job. Also, working taillight on here. Don't think you saw that in the pre-review run, but should also mention on the front of this thing, the headlight that is installed has a bit of a delay installed when you're running it with the Paragon 3 decoder. When it does come on, it is one of the brightest LEDs I've seen in an engine period. Running through my tunnel, you can definitely tell that it's coming, and it definitely illuminates the track in front of the engine. So now that we're zoomed back out, I'm going to bring the engine a little bit back into view here. It's probably time to talk about the electronics, how this thing runs, and its general usability. So we'll start with the easy stuff. This is a Paragon 3 locomotive, so it has all the standard features that all the Broadways do. And if you've caught any of my other reviews, you know that I'm a bit of a Broadway shill for the ease of use on their decoders. They provide excellent manuals, and the manuals are easy to read. It doesn't require any math skills, and most normal settings that you would want to change are simply just a simple CV change away, and they're generally pretty well detailed in those manuals. So when I say that I appreciate Broadway's best in the business CV list, that is the reason why. If you want to increase your steam volume, it's a simple CV away. You don't have to go through a bunch of menus. You don't need JMRI. You just scroll down the list in the either the digital manual, or some of them were provided in some of the older units. It's just simple to do. It also has access to CV19 consisting, which all decoders do, but through CV230, you can run this in a consist and have the lights function properly in either direction. Also, this is perfectly speed matched to other steam engines that I have from Broadway. Both of my Paragon 3 and Paragon 4 heavy Pacific and heavy Mikados can just run in consist with this, no speed matching required. There is a bit of a difference in speed between this and a diesel, so if you were going to do kind of a excursion train, you know, Union Pacific style with this type of engine, there would need to be a little bit of speed matching done. Again, this is a sound locomotive, and I'm going to kind of do the usual with this. We'll just go ahead and turn off the... to get the thing activated here. Once you get the steam running, most of the functions will work for you, even in mute mode. You have access to the bell, and the horn. That is important. I've gotten into that on several of my reviews. I like running my locos in silent when, you know, the family is in the front room, and should my kid want to get up and kind of take a look at what's going on, I like to be able to, you know, give him a quick toot of the horn as we come by. That being said, horn sounds really good. If you hold it for a long period of time, you can't necessarily hear the you know, the cycle in the horn. It also has a really good quick tone. The chuff system in this is far superior to that of the Mikado and the Pacific that I have reviewed in the past. The slow end can be a little bit lacking, I will admit that. If you kind of manually adjust the steam settings, you can get that to work a little better. I am really hoping that they come out with the Paragon 4 version of this engine, and some of those things will be cleaned up. But for right now, the thing that I really am impressed with is at higher speed, which this engine was kind of designed to be run at high speed for passenger service. The chuff rate really does match and sound proper to, you know, the driving wheels. So that's something that would have been make or break for me, because this engine generally is running at relatively high speeds on my layout. It is not only a excellent puller, but it is a good passenger train for me. You can kind of see the directional lights working there. All around, I am pretty well impressed with the sound on this. It's got a couple of issues, but for the most part, it is spot on, and I do appreciate the ease of use setting all this stuff up. So I got this set up on a little bit of a slow pan here, so you can get a little bit of look while I talk here. It's time to talk about price point on this thing, and it's pretty low in comparison to the other engines that we're going to see in the future. With DCC and sound pre-equipped on this thing, we're coming in at a substantially lower price than, say, the FEF or the GS4 with a lock sound pre-installed. $275 is a pretty smoking price point on this thing, and you can kind of get that all day now. Little high compared to some of the other engines we've reviewed, but this is also a bigger class of engine, and it has a lot of features. The other stuff in its class either comes DC or DCC equipped, and honestly, the Kato DCC functions on, say, like the GS4 are just subpar, and I haven't had a DCC ready FEF in my possession yet, but I got some other stuff that I'm looking to get in the future, which are more, you know, like Athearn Big Boy, that type of stuff. and they're on a whole different price point than this thing as well. So honestly, this is the most affordable, large, heavy pulling engine you can find. And if you have the proper track work, this thing is going to be an animal. It runs great, and it will probably be a set it and forget it model for you. So I have to recommend this to everyone. It's an excellent engine, and if you're looking for that big steamer, this is probably the place to start. All right, everybody, I appreciate you stopping by. Have a good rest of your weekend. Bye now.